We are once again one round away from our first Swiatek Slam final. Can Iga hold her end of the bargain, or can Belinda stop the pole from breaking her Slam finals drought? And we have the semifinal we all hoped for on the men's side between Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic. I'll talk about their quarterfinal wins and whether we should be worried about Novak's tumble towards the end of that match against Cobolli. Hello, my name is Christian Bassnight and welcome to Christian's Quote, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. Iga Swiatek is into her maiden Wimbledon semifinal after defeating Ludmila Samsonova 6-2, 7-5. I picked this one to be a comprehensive straight set Swiatek win, despite Samsonova historically being the stronger player on the grass and not dropping a set this tournament. I said this because Iga, she owned a 4-0 head-to-head over Ludmila, and Ludmila's last set that she won over Iga was way back in 2022. And also, this would be Samsonova's first Slam quarterfinal, so I knew that the nerves would be a considerable factor for her. And I was right, and I feel like Ludmila definitely felt the moment. It wasn't a great first half of the match for her at all. In the first set, she finished with 6 winners to 18 unforced errors. Iga was pretty even keeled with 8 winners, 8 unforced errors. And more impressively, Swiatek, she won 100% of her first serve points in that first set. Iga looked like she was going to steamroll to the semifinals. She led 6-2, 3-love, and she also held a 6-2, 4-2, 40-love advantage over the Russian. And I think that maybe here she felt the moment of trying to make her first semifinal at SW19. As her forehand, it started to spray a little bit. And Ludmila, I think, at this point started to settle down a little bit more, and she began playing a lot better. She actually had a little bit of an opening to take the second set as she was up 30-love, or it was love 30 when Iga was serving at 5-all. But here, Iga did well to really elevate her level another notch, and Ludmila simply couldn't match it. I don't think it was anything poor from her end. Iga was just too strong to close out the match. This was yet again another great match from Iga, and she made life harder for her opponent, Samsonova, with how well she dictated the points a lot of times and opened up the court with her forehand, especially her forehand cross court. And Iga was also being very aggressive on both wings, especially on the forehand. But the difference in this tournament compared to tournaments where she hasn't had a lot of success in the past is that it was like controlled aggression. She wasn't really going off the rails and making a lot of wild forehand misses. And her backhand, unsurprisingly, was also very solid and was on point too. And I feel like Iga and her overall form is kind of similar to the Australian Open, where she played really, really well and strong through the semifinals. And even in the semifinals against Keys, even though she lost that match, she still played well. But I think the difference here, comparing her form in Melbourne to now Wimbledon, is that she's relying a little bit more on her aggression, not as much on her defense, which is it's harder to do on the grass. But overall, it's just she's playing within herself a lot more, and that's why she's been having the success that she's had throughout this fortnight. With this victory over Samsonova, Iga completes a career set of semifinals, reaching the semifinal stage at all 4 slams, and she also joins Aryna Sabalenka, and they're the first duo to make the semifinals of the first 3 slams of the year since Justine Henin and Kim Clijsters did it in 2006. I know that a lot of people have been considering this Iga's flop year, and I understand both sides of the spectrum, because when you look at it, like, Iga still has not won a title, has only made 1 final this entire year. It's not a bad year by any means, but comparing it to her last 3 seasons, it is somewhat of a decline in form and from her. But regardless, it's not a bad season from her. And I think we really have to marvel at how impressive it is that despite this quote-unquote flop year, she's made the semifinals at all 3 slams, playing well at all 3 slams as well. I think this was a big tournament regardless of what happens next for Iga, and showing her that she can truly play well and excel on the grass. She did win the junior Wimbledon title back in 2018, and she also played well here in 2023, I think. And actually, she's won her last 17 of 20 matches on the grass. She will look to go 18-21 on Thursday, but Belinda Bencic will have something to say about that. Bencic reached her second career major semifinal and first as a mother when she defeated Mira Andreeva in 2 tiebreak sets on Wednesday. I knew this was going to be a really interesting match. Both women, they have a lot of variety, probably Mira more so than Belinda, and she brought definitely more flair and variety than Belinda did with the slices, especially all the slices on the forehand side. And I think a lot of that, or some of it at least, was due to Mira not feeling as confident from her topspin forehand, because that shot failed her a lot throughout this match. And Belinda was great in her strategy. She hit about 60%, probably more than that, of her shots, directing that to the mirror, the weaker mirror forehand. And that's the shot that gives Andreeva quite a few problems, especially whenever she loses. And we saw that in the Boisson Roland Garros quarterfinal. Her forehand kind of went off the rails towards the end. And I also think that Belinda made life harder for the 18-year-old with her serve, as a lot of Bencic's serves were kind of sliced into the weaker Andreeva forehand wing. That was definitely a go-to serve, a smart serve from the Swiss woman. Mira, despite her forehand struggles, had her chances throughout this match. Both women did, as they were both 1 of 4 on break points. I mean, not many chances. That just goes to show how competitive this match was, but still there were chances nonetheless, especially for Mira, that came and went. And Mira, her only break of serve came when Bencic's first serve for the match at 5-4 in the second set. Andreeva, she had a couple break points in the opening set at 5-all and another one at 4-3 in the second set, but giving credit to Belinda, she honestly just played the bigger points better than Andreeva, which is impressive considering how she hadn't been at this quarterfinal stage in in 4 years. Her last quarterfinal being at the 2021 US Open. I think Mira will be disappointed with how she competed, particularly in those 2 tiebreakers. Bencic kind of ran away with those tiebreakers. I do think, again, that forehand is something that needs a little bit more improvement, and that's been kind of being her Achilles heel in these big matches. I do think that she showed great improvement this tournament with her serve and net skills, and I think that if she can continue to refine, her net play as well as, again, her forehand, she can win a slam within the next year. I am wondering, though, whether she's developing somewhat of a mental block in these slams, as the Roland Garros quarterfinal again against Boisson and then now this one were both very winnable matches for Andreeva. But focusing on our victor here, Belinda Bencic, what a beautiful comeback story that she has had. This comeback is very much Svitolina-like, and it's ironic because Svitolina, she also had a breakthrough here at Wimbledon back in 2023. But Belinda's rise is just truly something. She gave birth to her daughter Bella in April 2024. She came back really that same year, 6 months later in October 2024, so a fast comeback. And she truly started from the bottom. She was unranked, and she played some ITFs and a 125, and she was able to build her ranking up to around 487 to start this season. And she's had some solid results this year, making the Australian Open 4th round. She won her first title as a mom at the 500 in Abu Dhabi, also made a quarterfinal at Indian Wells, and all those results helped her come back inside the top 50. Things were not looking that great for Belinda during the clay swing. Clay is already her least favorite surface, but she also suffered an arm injury which forced her out of Roland Garros, and she also lost 6-1, 6-2 in the lead-up tournament, her comeback tournament from that injury in Bad Homburg right before Wimbledon. So I wasn't really looking for her to do much at Wimbledon at all. So for her to come through and have this much of a run just shows how talented she is. And she was touted as somewhat of a prodigy, somewhat of a similar story to Anisimova, having a big breakthrough as a youngster, but not being able to quite live up to those standards. But she's doing it now and showing just how talented and skilled she is. So props to her. Looking ahead at this Bencic Swiatek semifinal, Iga leads the head-to-head 3-1. And this will be their first meeting since Wimbledon 2023. They met in the 4th round, which Iga took 6-7, 7-6, 6-3. Belinda arguably should have won this, as she had 2 match points at 6-5 in the second set, but it's not really too much Belinda could have done differently. Iga just was so clutch at that point. I definitely do think that Belinda has a shot at beating Iga here. Again, I said this before, but how Iga's playing right now is somewhat similar to how she played in 2023 at Wimbledon, and we all know, again, that Belinda was a point away from beating her. I think that Bencic, especially on this faster grass surface, has the game to truly trouble Swiatek. She takes the ball early, cuts angles off extremely well, and her go-to serve, that slice serve to the opponent's forehand, can be extremely effective against Iga, especially whenever Swiatek's forehand kind of goes off the rails and awry. And I think at some part it will. I don't think that Iga will play a completely flawless match. There will be parts where she is a little bit shaky, and it's up to Bencic to be able to cash in at those points where she is shaky. Bencic just overall hits a very flat shot, which again can trouble the sometimes shakier Swiatek forehand. I assume though that Iga would have the physical edge in this match. Belinda has played a lot more tennis coming into this one, about 2.5 hours more, and this was earlier in her her comeback, but we did see her fade away a bit in her Australian Open round of 16 match against Coco Gauff. Of course, things are a bit different there as it was hotter there and Coco makes things more physical. Here, the points would be a little bit shorter, so that can aid Belinda. But I still feel like Belinda, her best shot at winning this one will be winning this one in 2 sets, although she is more battle-tested than Swiatek. I think that she has a better shot at winning it in 3, only if she's coming back from being a set down, like a set deficit, and Iga won the first set. Looking at things from a mental lens, Iga, she has struggled to clear slam semifinal hurdles, but I think that her making the final in Bad Homburg the week before Wimbledon will help her a lot in getting over this hump and actually making another slam final. I think that Belinda, her nerves were apparent in closing out her 4th round and quarterfinal victories, and they will undoubtedly be apparent here as she tries to make her first ever slam final. That's somewhere she's never been before. Iga has been in this position before, although yes, it has been a minute, but still, you got to think that her having the position of winning slam semifinals will help her in this match. Not to mention, she's been in this stage, even though she hasn't won a slam semifinal, she's been in slam semifinals the past 2 slams. Meanwhile, this is Belinda's first slam semifinal since the 2019 US Open. Yes, perhaps her being a mom will help with the nerves as she is playing for, a greater purpose, I'd say, and she knows that life is bigger now than hitting a tennis ball. I mean, there's always a flip side to things, and the flip side to this one can be Iga. I think that she knows that she will be a pretty considerable favorite. Yes, Belinda is no chump change, but she knows that Bencic hasn't been in this position many times before, and she could face tougher opposition, just being transparent, than Bencic. So she knows this is a great opportunity for her to break that streak and perhaps win another slam. And she could possibly have PTSD, not only from that Olympics loss to Zhang, but also that Keys Australian Open semifinal loss. I think that might even be bigger PTSD as she was in a match point position. But regardless, I do think that Iga will be a little bit too tough. I think that her experience in the end and also her being more physically tough, I feel, will get her through, and I will have her win in 3 sets. Now, looking at the men's action, Jannik Sinner, he is into his 4th straight slam semifinal. He defeated American Ben Shelton 7-6, 6-4, 6-4. Being fully transparent, I wasn't even sure if Sinner would play this match because, of course, we all know he had some injury concerns with that elbow issue he suffered in his 4th round match against Grigor Dimitrov, where ultimately the Bulgarian unfortunately retired at 2-all in the 3rd set after holding a 2-0 lead over the Italian. Jannik also didn't hold a conventional practice. He practiced for like 20 or 30 minutes or so indoors, didn't practice on Orangi courts, but he played like he didn't have a shoulder or elbow issue at all. It was a phenomenal match. He honestly played better than ever, and he showed no concerns for real until 7-6, 3-2, 15-love, where he had a forehand return and kind of shook out his arm, and he looked in serious trouble at that point. He was kind of messing with his arm a little bit, but we know that Jannik, even though he might have an injury problem, like during a match, a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, he ends up fine, and he ended up fine in this match. Sinner was really dominant on serve throughout this match. He wasn't broken one time, and he only faced 2 break points, which came in the opening game of the 2nd set. And the first break point save was simply too good from Jannik. The second one was also arguably too good from Sinner, but Ben has just got to make Jannik play a volley there. Shelton also had a little bit of an opening at 4-all, love 30 in the 3rd set, but he just missed 2 very makeable returns. Once again, I think the tiebreaker was just really crucial and honestly might have been the nail in the coffin for Ben in this one. And Jannik, he is 6-1 overall head-to-head wise against Shelton, but he's also 6-1 in tiebreakers against Ben too. So that goes to show that the tiebreakers are important, and Ben, he's right there with Jannik, but he's just not able to match him in the tight moments. That's simply it. Sinner has now won his last 15 sets against Shelton, and Ben still, of course, has room to improve and make up ground between him and Sinner and ultimately Alcaraz. And I still am on the Ben Shelton will win a slam hype train. And Shelton, I think he did return better here than he did in their Australian Open semifinal. But once again, his first serve percentage dipped at the wrong moments, and Sinner, being the world number one and the best player right now, he's going to take full advantage of that. Ben has some insightful quotes when analyzing this match in his post-match press conference. The American said, "With Sinner, his ball speed is really high. I've never seen anything like it. You don't see anything like it when you're going through the draw. When you play him, it's almost like things are in 2x speed. I'm usually pretty good at adjusting to that speed. It's difficult when a guy's hitting the ball that big, that consistently off both wings, and serving the way he is. I had the right idea for a lot of the match today. I served a lot better than I did in Australia, smarter, I just went for it. But my first serve percentage dropped in the moments that I needed it, and I probably just played too tentative. It was almost like a lot of the forehands that I was hitting that I needed to go for, that you need to go for against a guy like that, I was kind of spinning them, topping out, like I was playing on a slower hard court or even a clay court." Again, very insightful comments there from Shelton and Ben. He is also looking forward to doing something big at the US Open later this summer, which he says that's his favorite part of the season. Shelton also said that he is happy with his improvements in movement, ball tolerance, shot selection, feel, finishing at the net, and his return games, but that he still wants to improve his fitness and be at his best for the US Open. "The way I'm moving, the way I'm returning, hitting the ball from the ground is better," Shelton said. "It's not where I want to be, but I have 6 weeks to do everything humanly possible to be ready and be better at the US Open. That's my favorite tournament of the year. Yeah, I'm going to go for it for this next however many weeks that I have." I think that really Shelton can win the US Open. I know it might seem crazy to y'all, but he is a strong slam player. I feel like, especially at the US Open, he's going to be guaranteed to at least make the second week, and he's going to be in his element playing at his favorite tournament at home and also his favorite surface. And he has done well at the US Open his past few years. He made the semifinals in 2023 where he was a lesser player. Last year, he could have gone deeper and made the finals, I feel, if he had beaten Tiafoe in that tight third round affair, which went to 5 sets. And he said himself that he has about 6 more weeks. I don't know if that's enough time for him to make the improvements necessary to beat a Sinner or an Alcaraz, but anything's possible. Why not him? Of course, Novak Djokovic, he joined Sinner in the semifinals, and he also broke a tie with Roger Federer in making the most Wimbledon semifinals in history, 14. He defeated Flavio Cobolli 6-7, 6-2, 7-5, 6-4. I have to say, I was extremely surprised by how well Cobolli played, and I expected this one to be kind of straightforward, straight sets match for Djokovic, considering how Cobolli, he talked about how this was his idol, playing Novak, and this was his center court debut. Mind you, he has not had the best track record against top 10 players in slams. He had never won a set against a top 10 player at a major, but to do so against your idol on center court, despite being down 3-5 in the opening set, and saving a bunch of set break points. He also saved a set point too at 5-4. That's a huge effort from the Italian, and that just goes to show his growth. And I think, too, for him to win the opening set, outplaying Novak, beating him in a tiebreak, that's hugely impressive. Ultimately, Novak, like he did against Alex de Minaur, was just too strong in the final 3 sets, but still props to Cobolli for how well he pushed Novak deep in those last 2 sets, and he gave himself an opportunity really to push this to 5 sets. Even Novak said afterwards that he was impressed by how well Flavio played, namely from the Italian serve. Novak said, "I didn't expect him to serve that well. At some parts of the match, he was just serving so good I wasn't able to read his serve or attack his serve. Just huge improvements from him, I think, in the last 6 months, since I last faced him in Shanghai. The results are showing his improvement. He's in the quarterfinals of the Grand Slam for the first time. I told him at the net to keep going. A bright future is ahead of him for sure if he keeps going this way." I agree with Novak. I think Flavio has a bright future, and I think that something changed for him, especially after he won his first 500 title in Hamburg ahead of Roland Garros, as before that, he wasn't really doing too much throughout this year. I think the serve, like Novak mentioned, huge improvements. I think that was an area where players could attack, and he was a little bit vulnerable, Cobolli was, on his serve, but now that that's a weapon for him, the sky's the limit. And now Flavio, he makes his top 20 debut, or he will make his top 20 debut on Monday, sitting at 19 in the live rankings, and now he has his maiden major quarterfinal under his belt. That'll give him even more confidence to do something perhaps even bigger. Maybe he can win a 1000 before the year's end. Slam, don't think that'll happen. He needs maybe a few more years for that, but again, with the way that he played against Novak, why not him in the next within the next 3 years or so. So keep an eye out for sure for Flavio Cobolli. I'm going to talk more about how well Novak played in my full complete men's semifinal preview, but I do want to talk about that fall that he suffered when trying to serve out the match in the end. It looked nasty, and I thought like this could be it. This could be a wrap for him. He looked in pain, and he was able to kind of serve out the match, being the GOAT that he is, but I don't know. This could bite him in the butt, no pun intended, for his semifinal against Jannik Sinner. I think it will be interesting because I think even Jannik, even though his elbow seemed fine, that issue could rear its ugly head too in the semifinal. So both guys, neither will be a fully 100% healthy. Briefly highlighting Novak's quotes on that injury, he said, "I guess the real impact or effect of what happened, I will feel tomorrow. So we'll see. I'm hoping the next 24, 48 hours that the severity of what was happening on the court and what happened is not too bad, that I will be able to play at my best and free of pain in 2 days." That's all I have for my second Wimbledon quarterfinal recap, and let me know in the comments whether you feel that Bencic can cause the upset to Swiatek. Also give your thoughts on the men's quarterfinals that we saw today and whether you think that Shelton can be a legit US Open title contender, as well as do you think that Novak will recover in time to topple Sinner and take down the world #1. Again, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you are notified whenever I post my women's semifinal recap video and my men's semifinal preview videos. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support, and I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.